Tonight, I would like you all to imagine a far-off beach, beyond time and reason. Perhaps right now you can feel the wind blowing in your hair, or the water coming up to your toes. As we take a glance at this beach, there is a man lying there. And I don't actually know what this man's name is, but for the sake of clarity, we shall call him Roderick. Now, as Roderick opened his eyes, he looked up into the sun, and he began to dig his hands into the sand. And he thought to himself, "Where am I? How did I get here?" He stood up, and he couldn't remember much, not just about the last few hours, but of his entire life. He could only capture fleeting memories that he had a wife and 4 children. And he thought that the last thing he might have been doing was driving, and he couldn't say for sure whether he'd been drinking or not. Well, anyways, as he looked around, he began to call out, "Hello? Hello, is there anyone out there?" But, there was no answer. There were no houses for miles around, just sand, endless expanses of sand. Well, anyways, Roderick was a little bit tired, and he decided he'd cool off. So he ran into the ocean, and he began to play, and as he played, he felt like a young child again, like he was only 10 years old. And finally he came out of the water, and he looked out into the desert, and he remembered his wife and children. And taking one longing look at the sea, he decided he'd head off and go in search of them. So anyways, Roderick began his journey. As he walked, the sun began to blare down on him, and every step he took was painful, for the sand was hot against his toes. So Roderick took off his shirt, and he put it on his head. And great gobs of sweat began to drip down his face and down his whole body. But he continued walking, and as he walked, the thought began to form in the back of his head. "Go back," it said to him. "Go back." But he thought to himself, where would I go back to? Anyways, he continued on, and he found it strange that there didn't seem to be any other living creature on the beach. There was no seagulls, and not even a crab was scuttling across the sand. It seemed like there was just him and this place. Well, anyways, as he walked, he realized that every step he took seemed to be against time and reason as the sun glared down on him. He began to see images pass in his mind. Images of women, of children, and he tried to reach out and touch them, but he realized they were only mirages. Anyways, as he walked, he finally began to become too weary, too tired, and he took one last step, and then he fell face forward into the sand. Anyways, he lay there, and he began to sob. And as he laid there, a thought occurred. He didn't know where this thought occurred to him. It seemed so natural, so much as if he'd known it all along. He thought to himself, "There's nothing out here for me." And then he stood up, and he realized that he would have to go back to the sea. So anyways, he began to walk back, and as he did so, he began to feel lighter. He felt as if new life was coursing through his body. And soon enough he reached the sea, and he jumped in, and he began to swim out towards the sun. And he hit his hands and feet hard against the water. And as he swam, he knew that he was going into the next life. And then he began to hear singing, clear singing, sort of almost like a bell. And then, all at once, he disappeared. To where? None of us can say for sure. Anyways, eventually all of us will have to go to this beach. All of us will have to make our own decision, whether we want to go off into the sand and keep walking and struggle and torture ourselves to a life that we can never have back, or whether we wish to face the sea, to go off in search of what lies in the next place. In the end, we will all have to make this decision. May judgment be upon us. And as always,